They schedule in self-care. They find that self-care is something that they would maybe find it with friends when they go for a meal. But to actually schedule in self-care means to actually put everything away and say that this time I want to look after myself. I want to see how I'm doing. I want to see whether something is disturbing me. So this kind of self-examination, a keen sense of self-awareness of one's ability and capability is important. I mean, you need to know what is your potential, and from there work within what you can. But sometimes you may be pitched something higher, but it may not be within your reach for that period or for that time. But sometimes for some youths, they feel that they just have to reach there, and that's where the stress will start to come. Another thing I notice is very good for them is if they know how to manage their commitments. Like they need to know when it's school time, CCA, and they need to also spend time with themselves. And they need to find time to do things they enjoy.
So now the first study tip I would say is this. Let me just get this. Okay, so this is a hot one. I find a lot of students, they tend to believe that we should cram. Try to study as much as you can the night before. I think they have this concept of the proximity effect, meaning that if I study the day before, I will be able to get all that material into my head. But you must remember one thing, that your mind cannot absorb so much at one go. You have to actually break it up into study blocks. So this is something that I've been learning. There's this guy called Daniel Tay. I've been learning from him on how to actually study better. And this is what I actually help with my students with. So one of the few things you can do when you are studying, when you're telling your child to study, is continual revision. So example, let's say I study a certain concept in kinematics, let's say. So you study that day, then you try to remember it 3 days later, 6 days later, 1 month later, and then 3 months later. So after some time, because you keep revising again and again and again, what happens is your mind has already kind of created a synapse in your mind, and it has created a connection. So, okay, when it comes to studying the night before, do you think it's a very good idea? For those who are here, maybe you can just comment, like, what are your what say, what what do your children do? Do they do that a lot? Do they like study right at the end, or is it a continual revision? Maybe if you all mention, then I can give you all some tips. But this is something that I would mention for those parents where if you find that your child is always doing this before the exams, because I interact with a lot of parents, and a lot of parents tell me that what happens is this: the child actually just revises right before the exam, and they feel that is not right, which I totally agree with them. Because you see, if you are cramming right in the middle of the night, let's say you're awake till 4 5 o'clock, your exam is at about 8 o'clock, your mind is not able to rest. The main thing about studying is this: when you study all this material, your mind is encoding it. But
Hi guys, hi parents out there. So today we have Rafeah with us, and we are actually doing this will be the part two. So we actually be talking about how can you talk to your child. So example, the previous session we did talk about how the so like a little bit about Rafeah as what we mentioned previously. She's a master of social science for counseling, so she is great at what she does. I can attest to that. She has a Bachelor of Social Sciences. She has a graduate diploma in clinical supervision, and a parent of two teenagers. So she knows what you're going through. She's not just telling, but she's walking the walk also. So she's familiar with the problems of dealing with teenagers. Now, other than that, she mentioned the previous time about communicating with your child. Now, for those who are here, right, previous time I think we did, there were a lot of people who were very participative. So you guys please bring that same energy to this. So if you have any questions related to how to deal with your child, or maybe you are having burning questions, just pop it in the chat so that we can answer and then we can solve your problems. That's what we talked about in communicating with your child. So we have the generation conscious, we have the emotions conscious, and parenting style conscious. So example, the generation conscious, if I'm not wrong, Rafia, we are in the kids are in what gen?
Gen Z.
Gen Z, okay, because
Yeah.
I really have no idea. Because I heard now that the Gen Alpha also. Then I'm like, what? It's gonna be Alpha Bravo. So yeah, like what you mentioned. So so they are the Gen Z people. So they're a little bit more different. I think like what Rafeah mentioned is that Gen Z, they are more social media savvy, they believe in their privacy, they are more independent, and the world is their oyster. So you may see that, you may feel that they are a bit aloof, but it's not that they are just ignoring you, it's just that this is what this generation is familiar with. Other than that, the emotions consciousness. Now, the problem is with kids who are about 15 to 16, they're at that point where they want to break away from the parents, have their own independence. So some of us we may struggle with that because we are so used to hand holding. But like what Rafeah so rightly mentioned the previous time, that now it's no more the time about hand holding, but it's about coaching them and then showing them how, okay, if you do A, this is going to be the result B. So I think that's where we have to do the shift and parenting style. So it's a lot more observation because you see, I think a lot of us out there, for the six of us who are here, you must take note that the problem with just nagging is that you push the kids away, and we don't want that, right? And also, we need to adapt to the growing needs. So, example, I think it will be good example to also be familiar with their what you call like the media channels that they're familiar with. So I think TikTok is really big now. Is it, Rafael? Like for your two kids, like for the two teenagers you have?
Yeah,
Wow.
TikTok and TikTok. Basically, that's it. Yeah, and all the other social
Okay.
media channels. Yeah.
All right, all right. So example like TikTok. So a lot of language. I think if we are able to speak their language, it helps us connect. They will cringe inside lah. Like I have students who when I tell them about the language, like it's very lit. They're like, sir, please, sir, please don't, please don't. Yeah, I know that I know they are cringing inside, but the thing is that that's how you actually break that barrier, and then you are able to connect with them. So one thing I've noticed about kids who are about 15 to 16 years old is that they'll throw up a lot of walls. But the thing is that it is not about crushing those walls, but trying to figure out how can I get to them without breaking their independence also. So that's important. So now this is the main point for today: maintaining a healthy relationship with your child. So I have been talking away. I'm going to give Rafia a chance to do what she does best. So I think she mentioned about this thing called let go. So I did share with a lot of the promotional material about let go. Let me just get to that. Let go. So the first one is listening judgment free. So Rafia, you can take it away.
Okay. Thanks, Rajiv. Welcome back, parents, and some of us who have been here before. Some of you are just joining us for the first time. Okay, I like to use certain phrases because it helps me to remember the target audience, right? So I use GEP because I realized that a lot of us in the previous session, GEP means exams, right? Basically, GEP, when you want to go for overseas exam, you need to know your GEPs. And then let go is another phrase for me to remember that for the Gen Z, they want you to let and go. In other words, they want you to be someone who is on their side, but you're willing to let it go. So it's not that let go, you're holding on tightly and then they want to snap that grip. It's more like you are letting them go. Okay, so again, I often when I deal with teens of this generation, the idea is always to stand in their shoes. So when I coined the phrase "let go," it was from trying at my best to stand in their shoes and approaching what they need from them. Okay, so the first one is listening judgment free.
Okay. So can I
Yeah.
just understand a little better? So you said listening judgment free. So example, like, do we uh, do we like listen with an answer ready in our mind, or are we actually proactively listening to them?
Okay. So judgment free basically means you're going there trying to get into the shoes of the person you want to listen to. So which means that you have to suspend whatever perspectives or agenda you may have when you approach your child, right? So it's basically going there, your bag empty or your cup empty, not cup half full or cup full. You already your cup is full and you're trying to
You
Pour
really
into
like,
your child's
I
cup.
noticed.
Yes,
Next
you
time I get
basically
you, I'm gonna give you a cup set. These all the cups have it. Have it. Okay. So yeah, you mentioned okay. So listening judge free is basically like what you said, not half empty but half full, and listen to them for the purpose of actually really listening and not just like straight away reply them, and that's what we don't want, right?
yes, that's right.
Okay. All right. And then the next one is
So for the
expecting
E
not
part, to be the
to
center
be
of their lives. Okay, actually, Rajiv, the next slide has the breakdown. So maybe we
okay.
can show them that. That will be more helpful because the breakdown has
Okay. Or maybe do you want to just talk about this in
in
a
a quick.
while? Then okay. And so okay. So basically, okay. Maybe I'll just talk about this. Then you go into the details because you're the subject
Mm,
matter expert. So example like what Rafeah mentioned. L is for listening judgment free. So from what I've gathered so far, it is about proactively listening, expecting not to be the center of the life because we've been so used to being like their son, and now you have to kind of let them go. Like now they are the comet, they are no more the moon, they are not stuck to us already. So they are the comet, you have to let them move off. Time to know their quirks, which is sometimes it might be jarring because some of the Gen Z they can be quite, the lack of a better word, interesting. But you have to be, you have to go with the punches lah. Then G is the GEP conscious, like what she mentioned previously, and opening up channels for adulting. So we can't let them be stuck in when they were younger, like in the primary school stage. We have to give them room to grow. So okay, yeah, Rafia, you mentioning about this?
okay, so with the L of let go, we want as parents, we want to first make a commitment as a parent to listen and understand. So when you approach your child, your first agenda is to listen and understand. So that itself is an agenda, right? And that will set the pace and tone of how you sit with your child. So basically, when you are listening judgment free, you suspend your worldview. You're not going to tell grandma, grandpa stories of how you did it or how you overcame something. You would enter your child's world instead. So a lot of open-ended questions will be very good at this point. You'll be like, what do you mean by that? What do you understand by that? Why do you say that? So a lot of inquisitive listening. So that's another form of listening. To listen inquisitively means that you are trying to enter your child's world, right? The third portion about listening judgment free is where it's more process driven as opposed to outcome driven. You are there to enjoy the listening process. You are not there to say, okay, I've listened to him for 15 minutes. Now can I just inject what I want him to do? So you are there to enjoy listening. Okay, so that will be your agenda, to enjoy the listening portion. Okay.
I think it's amazing like what you said about like in my time I had to walk 10 miles to go to my school. I mean we've heard all of that lah. And the kids nowadays they will just say not my fault. Why are you telling me this? Why are you telling me this? So I think that's a very valid point that you mentioned that don't just listen to react, but listen like inquisitively, so that they also feel they're being heard. And I think there's an art to even listening. And you guys, for those who are here, you just see how Rafia listens. That is what we want from the parents, because the way she listens very different from everybody else. You can see that she has a genuine interest in what you are saying. But a lot of us, the problem is when we talk, right? We are kind of, I feel personally, whenever I'm talking to someone, I'm always thinking of my answers, but I'm not really listening to the other person's conversation. And that's something that we have to work on as parents ourselves. So no worries. So we talked about listening judgment free, and this is expecting not to be the center in their lives.
Okay, so the E part of let go is that in as the family grows, right? We are a system, right? The family is a system. So we need to understand that there'll be other systems outside of the family that will start to influence our children. Unless we live in Tasmania or Timbuktu, where there are no other systems to influence us, then okay, let's just be myopic in our views. But actually, we know that there are other systems outside, and to actually prevent those systems from impacting our family is actually not the way to go. Because we must understand that there will be things that go ahead of our knowledge. the other systems outside of us will grow. So we need the other systems to have influence on our family. So that's one. So expect that as parents, we will no longer be the central system for our children. The
Okay.
second
So,
part, yeah.
mhm. No, you're saying so. One question I have, because you mentioned about not being the central system. So, will you say then how, like what type of system do we create for them, or is there like a way to create a system for
Yeah.
our children?
Yeah. Okay. So as parents, you will maintain the I am the authority figure when it comes to making major decisions. Like, if you choose a certain subject matter or you're changing school, yes, I'll be the authority figure. But I understand what kind of subject you're going to choose is influenced by the trend now. But the final decision is something that we will do in consultation. So the central system will still be the parental figure or the parents, and then the other systems will be the what we call the subsystems, which we give importance to as well. But we always remind our children, finally, they need to come to the central system to talk and come to a decision making that is good for everyone, not just the parents, but good for the child first, and then acceptable to the family. So it's not a one-way street. It's like I want to be this, I want to do this, I want to study this, and then the parents just to have accept. No, it's not like that. It's a two-way street. That means parents also have a say in what the child has chosen, and then they have a consultation. So the systemic view of influences on a family is that we take from outside and then we filter what is good for the family, and then we decide from there whether we need a hybrid system or we want to go into somewhere really new, right? But that process of trying to get into homeostasis, that's such a word, that's correct, Rajiv,
Yeah,
you have to help me,
I
is
think
important in systems. Yeah.
Okay, okay. All right. So there must be a lot of like what you're telling, or what I gather from you is that in order to let them have their own system, also there must be a lot of communication.
Mm.
Is that will I say that's important?
Yes, that is important because then the communication is the bridge between the various systems.
Okay,
Just like
okay.
cells are
Yeah,
connected. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. So like you have the whole. Okay, fair enough.
Mm. Mm.
Now, time to get to know their quirks. So what do you
Okay,
mean by
there are
this?
still another two more points from that one, which I didn't
Okay,
finish. Yeah. Okay. So the other part about not being a center of their lives is be supportive of what they want
okay.
with less supervision. That means you are there, but you are still supervising them on their choices and what they want to do with their life.
Yeah.
But the supervision is less. You are now stepping into a more supportive role, right? And then as parents, you need to understand as we go, as our children grow, a lot of their needs cannot be fulfilled by us. They will need external people who will fulfill some of these needs. And it can be a coach, it can be a good friend, it can be a teacher. So we need to build this system as well, right? So when you know that you are no longer going to be the center of their lives, you will also be someone who will be now very cognizant to build bridges to systems outside. So you are also doing that for the child, because if sometimes for some children they don't do that, right? We have to be the one to be the trigger for them to look outside of the family, to look into life on a larger scale. So like for the Gen Zs, the world is their oyster. So some of their
Yeah.
the oyster which they may stick themselves in may not be helpful. So as
Uh,
parents, we will generate or we will push them in areas where we feel that we can improve the condition in which they are moving into.
okay.
So we still
Okay.
allow them to go out, but we vet and filter some of who they connect with.
Okay. 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 Are we done with the 3 points?
Yes.
Okay. So time to get to know their quirks. So what do you mean by this?
Okay. Basically, this is the period where they will start to really identify with their core identity. All this while they have been experimenting, but by the time they're 15, 16, you will see quite strong likes and dislikes. And
Okay.
some of these may really differ from you. So as parents, what we do is we want to check in every now and then. especially if certain quirks seem to border on illegal. Those legal ones, just enjoy it. But those illegal ones, you want to check in every now and then that they know what they're doing and that they stay within the boundaries, and then you want to understand why they are going in that direction. So you need to read up. You need to read up and understand what is the trend now. Plug in, to what are the teens excited about these days, and associate with other teens. So your child may be of a certain fashion, but other teens, but when you associate with them, then you can understand from a neutral point of view why another teen is behaving this way, and that helps you to understand your teenager as well.
Okay, okay. Let me just pause for a while. Now, Martin mentioned this. What if my second son stubbornly does not want to study more than 2 hours a day? Hard approach and soft approach do not work for him. He's very firm with his stance. Sounds familiar. But what do you think, Rafeah? So this person has a second son who does not want to study more than 2 hours. She has tried both methods, hard approach and soft approach, and nothing has helped.
Okay. I would very openly say sometimes what we see as soft approach is from our perspective. So it may not be suitable for your child. Similarly, what we understand a hard approach may also be from our perspective. But again, it may be too much or may not even be hitting the right places. So in a situation like this, I would want to understand first what is the problem. It may not be the studying may not be the issue. It could be other underlying factors that's causing your child to maybe reject any kind of contact or any kind of intervention in this area. So as I mentioned in the last session, when we see a certain behavior, those are only symptoms. If we only address symptoms, we will only be fighting fire. But we want to go deeper and look for the cause, right? So that's what we covered in the last session.
Yeah, yeah. So I think like for Martin, right, you mentioned that for your son, so like what Rafeah has mentioned that hard approach, soft approach, really subjective. So maybe you could just share with us what you have done so far, then maybe we can give you a better perspective. So anyway, back to the quirks part. I think you were mentioning, Rafia, that try to stick to the legal quirks. Illegal quirks, I think it's time for a sit down and like let's not get the police come to the house. All right. So like example, how do we? Okay, so let's just say example, like if my kid were to she would start like smoking vape or what, because I know that's like very common between the 15 and 16-year-olds. So how do I get her to stop smoking vape if let's say she is sold on the idea that that is cool?
Okay, so now the fact that as a parent you're aware, that is a past point. So to use that as a point of engagement with the child to say that I could have ignored this, but I didn't. And the reason why I didn't ignore is not only because it's illegal, but because I feel that your decision making needs some guidance. Okay. So check with the child. How did you come to start with this? What do you understand? So you need to check what the child understands about vaping, because a lot of times they get, excuse my language, rubbish information about certain things. So you need to vet what they're getting as information around these issues. Then you can correct them. Then you can correct and say, okay, you see this site says this about vaping. That's not possible in Singapore because that's not applicable here. So that's where you get the child to start vetting as well where they're getting the information. And then when you show the approach how you need to filter out information from the internet, that is also another way of supervising them. But with a little bit more liberal way. You're not saying that you're wrong to do this, but legally, yes, it is wrong. So I want to tell you why it is wrong, and then you show them the information.
Okay.
So it's using a more educative route rather than sit down and start scolding the child.
Okay. Because like like I think our generation, like our parents will just say stop doing it and you just stop doing it. Simple as that. But for the new generation, you can't just that doesn't work. So you have to really educate them. And I think you just need a lot of patience. Like you cannot be like oh, I told you already, why is it you're still doing? So it's just not going to work. And also, I think one thing very important they have mentioned before is that when you come to any interaction, you have to first see what your state is. If you're already irritated and angry, then it's not your child's fault when you interact with them, like how you behave, because you're already irritated from before. So maybe re-grounding yourself or try to find a center before talking to them, that will be helpful also, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The reason why
Okay.
I agree with you, Rajiv, is because you still want to be the point where they come to ask about things.
Correct.
Yeah, and if that outlet is closed, then a lot more things, a lot more cooks could be going on in their lives, and you would have no idea.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So all right. So basically you also don't want to like push them too far away, but what you want to do is to make sure that they are what you call agreeable and they are actually looking at you as a source of info.
That's right.
Okay. Okay. Can. All right. So are we done with this? Time to get
Yes,
to know
that's right. Yes.
all
Yeah.
right. That's done. Then the GEP conscious.
Okay. Basically, it's from last session,
Yeah.
being child-centered, but in this case, teen-centered, right?
Yeah.
And teen-centered means teens of today centered, not teens of our time centered.
Okay.
Okay, which means that you need to know what teens of today, what they're exposed to, what is the trend, what is the latest thing they crave for, right? So being teen-centered. Conscious guidance. Basically, we want to guide our children from a mindful space. So when you go in to give guidance, check your state. Are you consciously guiding, or are you guiding based on maybe impulse, or maybe on past history? You have certain slogans that you have in your head about your child, or he's always like this, she's always like this. There's nothing about him that I can change. So when you go in with slogans or beliefs about your child, then that's not conscious guidance.
Okay.
That's where you are going in with your cup already full. There's
Yeah.
nothing for your child to fill your cup. So we want to go in half full so that when we're talking engaging our child, they can give us feedback, and that can help us to understand them better. Okay, the
Okay.
third point about being GP conscious, that you're a powerful gatekeeper. A lot of parents feel that the moment they have to step back from their children's life, they lose power. Actually, it is the reverse.
Okay.
Yeah. So the mindset of parents should be that when I become their gatekeeper, I want to be a powerful gatekeeper. So we used the football rules the last time, right? About the
Yeah.
referee and the linesman. Okay.
Yeah.
So think about those things when you are supervising your child, right?
Okay.
Because you cannot teach your child to be the greatest footballer when he's on the pitch, on in the field. But as
Yeah.
the referee, as the linesman, as the coach sitting on the bench, when he sees you from the field, there will be a connection.
Okay.
There will be that want to do better in the field, right? That
Yeah.
is the kind of relationship you want to create with your team.
Okay.
That even though you are on the sidelines, he sees
Yeah.
you as someone reliable, someone he wants to engage, someone he admires, someone he trusts. Right? So
Okay.
that's where the power comes from.
All right. Okay. Yeah. So this basically what you're saying is that you have to be more centered towards the child and also like a source of like if let's say there are any problems or any issues, they actually are willing to go to you and get the
Mm,
guidance.
that's
Okay.
right.
All right, all right. So for Martin, right, I'm not sure if you're still with us. So do mention about what the hard approach and soft approach you have done. For the rest of you who are joining us, do remember that if you have any other questions on how to actually maintain your relationship with your child, please put it in the comment section. Yeah. Okay, so we've done on GP conscious and then open up channels for adulting. So what does this mean?
Okay. I think I'm not sure whether it's a culture in the country we're living in, but when you talk about being adults, it's always after university.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
even when they're doing their A levels, we still see them as students, which basically means still need to spoon feed them, right?
Yeah.
Actually, the contrary is that our Gen Zs, they are very ready for adulting.
Okay.
I believe sometimes on some levels even more ready than us when we were teens. So
Yeah.
we actually would have an easier time with them if we are more ready
Okay. So
to
how do
do
we
this
get
with them.
ready?
Okay, so introduce the concept of spending as an adult. Basically, you know, your basic needs. How would you pay for your transport? How would you pay for your daily needs? If you want a new phone, you know, daddy's not going to give you his Visa card. How are you going to pay up for it on your own? Right.
Mm.
So the concept of money, the concept of saving up, the concept of the if you go a certain direction, the consequences of it that you have to bear for yourself. Your parents are
Yeah.
not going to be there to bail you, right? So the whole idea when you're an adult is like, you're on your own, right? So that is something we want to introduce early.
Okay.
And that also will then entertaining post-school era planning means that if they are going into doing their A levels, we want to talk about what are you going to do after university, so that the A level subjects and the university selection will all be in line with what they want to do after school.
All right.
So that kind of mindset is also another way of engaging them as adults, right? Or at least instilling that concept. And then at this point also, we want to promote the idea of a conscious individual or conscious adult. Conscious meaning our child, our teen is capable of being mindfully present to
Yeah.
what is happening in their life. Right? So there's no longer going to be mommy or daddy at the corner saying, hey, do you think this is a good decision? Would you rather do this? So these kind of questions are things that they want to start doing for themselves.
Yeah.
Another aspect of a rounded conscious individual is whereby we would like our children, our teens, to engage not in just things that they want for themselves, but things for the community, things for the family. So they are an all-rounded human being.
Okay.
Because one of the issues with Gen Z is that they are quite insular because they spend a lot of time by themselves. So as parents, when we handle Gen Zs in this area of adulting, we want to push them out into the community. We want them to be more involved with others, more group-based kind of activities. So that kind of gives them the balance that they would need.
Okay. So basically, what you want to do also is to kind of create opportunities for them to kind of like test being an adult lah. So you kind of give them a
Yes,
test environment, and let's just see
correct,
what are adult decisions you make, and it is
correct.
still controlled because you're still there, and slowly you're kind of letting go so that you can also like give them the assurance that hey, you know what, mom is trust you that you can make the right decisions. And also you mentioned about entertaining the post-school era planning. So you let them be the one who actually spearhead. But a lot of kids, from what I see, from what my experience is, they really don't know what to do. So in this type of
Mm.
case, if let's say they just tell you that, hey mom, I really have no idea what to do. So then how do you like? Do you just give options or what?
Yeah. So as a parent, you would know some of the quirks your child has. Maybe he's more language based inclined, or he's more mathematically inclined, or more science inclined. So from there, you will open up certain areas for him to try out. Maybe he
Yeah.
takes short courses. Maybe he goes and joins a certain institution for volunteer work. So this is where you would put him out in the world earlier than when it's university time, when it's like really too late actually to
Yeah.
test water. So now will be the time you would test water. So I know of
Yeah.
many teenagers who actually take courses on the side to
Yeah.
see where their interest really is, and so this is the way to buttress or to trigger some of the passion that they have inside.
Okay. So yeah, so basically what you do is that you kind of also give them before uni, but like maybe after secondary school or whenever the opportunity arises to try maybe internships, like short stints, just to see
Yes.
different areas where they can work and see if they are what they actually like to do. Because like what I mentioned, a lot of students they really don't know what they like, and so I think if they don't know what they like, then the best thing as parents we can do is to give them those options and see where
Mhm.
we can actually get them to experience what it might be in a certain role.
That's right.
Okay. So I think that is basically all for today's session on the relationship part. So now, for those who are here, the nine of you, go ahead, put it in the comment section on what other issues you may have with the relationship with your child. Because I know a lot of parents actually they mention that they're struggling with their kid and they don't know how to actually connect or how to actually solve those problems. But while you guys are putting in the Q&A, I'll just do a recap. Basically, if you forget what to do, just remember, let go, like what Rafeah mentioned. So L is for listening, judgment free. So don't listen for the sake of replying, but listen inquisitively. That's important. So actually, you're listening for the sake of listening. E, expecting not to be the center of their life. So I think slowly we need to let them be independent and let them make decisions. I think that also goes with the adulting part. Tea time to get to know the quirks. This part I think very important because each kid is made differently, and let's support the legal quirks, not the illegal quirks. GEP conscious, I think that's a fabulous acronym. For a lot of parents, it will give you a better idea of how to actually deal with your child in terms of generation conscious, emotions conscious, parenting style conscious, and the last part, adulting. So all of this, always keep this in mind whenever you're interacting with a 15 or 16-year-old. Now, at the end of this, I'd like to thank Rafia for actually coming on for this Facebook Live. Now, if some of you are actually interested in having a longer conversation with Rafia, you can always feel free to scan the QR code on the left. So just take note, you can scan the QR code on the left. She is an expert in relationship, what I call counseling, example also between parent and child. So if you have struggles or you really think that your child is a high risk situation, I think it'd be best to scan that QR code and have a chat with her on Zoom. Also, for those, I think WA1 is coming up. So, a lot of parents who are looking for physics and chem help, you can scan on the right. So, I'll just keep this on the what you call the main screen, and then we will end. Anyway, guys, thanks for joining us for this Facebook Live. Thank you, Rafia, for joining us
Thank you.
also. And
Thank you.
you're welcome. And hopefully, we will have more sessions. Again, for those parents who have joined us, do put in the comment section what you think you would like to hear, maybe related to relationships with your child or maybe studying methods, anything that you all feel like you want to know more, just put it in the comments. So, thank you guys, and I'll see you all around soon.